Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 15, Episode 49. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for being back with us this Friday, Steelers Nation, as we are getting ready for this Week 10 game back in action against the Washington Commanders and what will be really one of the games of the week. Pittsburgh at 6-2, Washington at 7-2, a great litmus test for both of these teams. So jam-packed show today. I have a great guest a little bit later on in Ben Standig from The Athletic, who covers the Commanders. So, Dave, how you doing? Thanks for being here.
Happy Friday. I'm excited. 1 o'clock Eastern game. This one, when you look at it on tape and start previewing, it indeed does look like a 5-star matchup. I think it's going to be a great test for both of these teams. And, once again, an early game, which is enjoyable for us as a site covering it. And just really, really excited about this game. Excited to talk about it as well. And I guess we need to start the show with a little bit of housekeeping here.
Yeah, it's been a couple of days since we did the Tuesday evening show off the trade deadline in which Pittsburgh acquired wide receiver Mike Williams and outside linebacker Preston Smith. And so some of the corresponding moves and just responding things from that, Pittsburgh filling out their practice squad, signing a pair in tight end Matt Sokol and defensive tackle Dominic Davis. Talked about Davis last show. I think that happened mid-episode. Sokol with a team in training camp. Rodney Williams has cleared waivers. I thought he would circle back. Maybe he still does, but so far, no word on Rodney Williams. I think he's got to come back at some point, given his value on special teams. Should also note the team has opened the practice and to return window for wide receiver Ben Standig, who's been out since week 2 with a shoulder injury. Did a nice job as a gunner before going down in that Denver game. So he's returned in practice and practiced fully. Will he get activated this week? I'd be a little surprised, but it's possible, so we'll wait for Saturday and get word on Skowronek.
Yeah, and Mike Tomlin had dropped the name of Corey Trice Jr. at the beginning of the week, making it sound like his window would be open, but that did not happen yet. So it looks like it's going to be at least another week on him. We'll see what happens with the Saturday roster moves, elevations, and things of that nature. I'm with you. I'd be a little bit surprised if this is the week for Skowronek, but stranger things have happened when it comes to that. But I think the Thursday injury report needs a little bit dissecting here, right?
Sure, a couple names to note here. Pittsburgh generally healthy, which we expected them to be coming out of the bye. Zach Frazier's practiced in full. Same with Cordero Patterson. Those guys should return. Tyler Medikevich, who remains on IR like Skowronek, has practiced in full. So there's a guy that could be activated come Saturday by 4 p.m. It would be Medikevich. The two names to really watch for, the couple names I should say, Terrell Edmunds has been out with an illness on Wednesday, Thursday. See what his status is for Friday. Nick Herbig seems to be the one injured player with his status still up in the air as of this recording Friday morning. Before the final injury report, he's been limited both days, Wednesday, Thursday with the hamstring. I'll guess they'll give him another week on that. And then MyCole Pruitt popped up with a knee injury on the Thursday report. He had that knee injury that caused him to miss over a month of action earlier this year. Don't know if that's related or separate, but watching for Pruitt as well. And Justin Fields has also practiced in full. So he'll be good to go after missing week 8 and be the number 2 quarterback in this game.
Yeah, we said at the top of the week there, kind of wondering what, Nick Herbig might be a guy to watch. And obviously Friday is the key day there. He's been limited the last 2 days. The gut feeling is that he might need another week. Now, if he goes out there and practices full, regardless, you're probably going to end up questionable, I would think. But I don't know, might be ruled out. We'll have to see what Friday holds for him. Terrell Edmunds, interesting guy there, missing a couple of practices with an illness. As you mentioned, it sounds like Cordell Patterson will be back. Have to think that this might be the week for Tyler Medikevich, right? In his window I guess they could go a couple of extra days, but that's one to watch there. And then MyCole Pruitt showing back up with that knee injury. We'll have to see if just needed kind of a day of rest there, if he's able to go. If he ultimately is unable to play in this game, you have to wonder if one of the elevations on Saturday might be Matt Sokol coming off the practice squad elevated on Saturday there. Now, with Cordell Patterson looking like he might come back this week, and if they were to activate Tyler Matakevich, might Jonathan Ward be the odd man out?
Yeah, if you're talking about, clearing 53-man roster spots, the two names I think you look at, CJ Henderson with Cam Sutton's return and Jonathan Ward. I think they would start with Ward because when you have Patterson back, you have your top three of Harris, Warren, and Patterson. Ward has had created good value on special teams, and so you have to kind of put everything together. If you don't have Rodney Williams, you don't have Herbig, who's going to assume some of those roles. So there's probably some things to work out, but of course, if you're adding Matakevich, then that's going to take care of the problem itself. So that seems the most likely place to start.
All right, so needless to say, we're expecting some news on Saturday afternoon.
Yeah, I don't know if Sokol would get called up. I don't know how much special teams value he really offers. You still have 3 tight ends, so you can probably make it work again, especially if Matakevich does get officially activated off of IR. So that'd be my first thought there. We can still see some elevations and some other roster moves coming.
All right.
Talking Washington, and we'll speak with Ben here in a little bit and get his perspective, but a couple names on their injury report include their new acquisition, cornerback Marshawn Lattimore has not practiced with the hamstring injury that he had with the Saints before getting dealt to Washington during Tuesday's deadline. Left tackle Cornelius Lucas looks less likely to play right now. One of their running backs, their top guy, really Brian Robinson's status seems to be a bit unclear as well. So no, besides Lattimore, obviously, maybe no game-changing injuries there, but a couple things to note for Washington.
Yeah, they a lot of talk about that Lattimore deal and him not practicing since, and it even if he does wind up suiting up for this, you'd have to imagine it might be a small section. His snap count might be limited overall, so we'll have to see how that plays out. But there's only really probably 3 names to watch, or maybe even 4, as Ben told us. People will hear later in the show. The 4th name there to kind of watch going into the weekend here.
All right, Dave, as always, the coordinator speaking on Thursday, Arthur Smith and Teryl Austin. Let's start with Arthur Smith, who's asked, of course, about Mike Williams and how he can integrate himself into the system. And, said he was a good scheme fit overall, but you're getting a guy on the fly, not 100% sure how quickly things will get picked up and how to fit him into the system. So we'll see. I imagine the snap count won't be too terribly high out of the gate, but he should play and have some sort of role in this game against Washington. And Smith talked about his contested ability. There's the size element, the run blocking element, and so I think he thinks he'll be a good fit in this system and scheme.
Yeah, I'm interested to see the run blocking aspect and what he can bring to this. Obviously, a bigger guy to have out there, and you might be down, technically 1 tight end this week if they don't bring Sokol up. And this is a Steelers team obviously going to try to run the football, continue to run the football well. Let's talk about what else has stuck out about Mike Williams since we talked the other day after the acquisition of him? Obviously, not a lot of receptions overall so far this season, so they were easy to go through. I'll tell you, the one thing that stuck out to me was kind of the outside the numbers catches, some contested catches in there. I think you noted seems to do a fairly good job at some settling down in some zone situations. I think he had a couple of kind of over route kind of connections. One I think was an extended play situation here. But what have kind of your extended thoughts on Mike Williams since we last talked?
Yeah, the more I thought about it, and I agree off the top, and I do think he'll be used as a vertical outside the numbers, kind of Z-type receiver, just to put a position on him, but these guys will all move around. But could there be some big slot value there? Pittsburgh really hasn't, I wouldn't say truly had that since Juju. I know Allen Robinson kind of assumed some of that role last year, but he just worked so underneath, so shallow. It didn't really feel like there was a huge benefit there, some third down work, some move the sticks type of work, but that was really it. With Williams, I just question how much he can run, how much juice there is in those legs right now, especially still pretty fresh, just over a year off the ACL tear, typically 2 years out before you really feel like yourself. And of course, he's already in his 30s. But some of the catches he made and some of the work he got was in the slot more than I thought. Even he had that one catch against Pittsburgh on fourth down was over the slot on a bender against the safety Deshaun Elliott. Had a nice seam ball adjustment earlier this year than against, I want to say, Denver. So, I wonder if there's some mixing and matching you can do with him and to maybe mitigate that lack of explosiveness on the outside. Can he kind of be a big slot matchup problem that Pittsburgh really hasn't had in a little bit?
Yeah, I kind of also wonder with him being new and just the 1 week of practice here, and I think Arthur Smith was asked about this as well too. Being used as kind of an assimilation week, if you will. It's hard enough to get. One of the things he talked about, kind of coming out of New York, there is never. You just get the sense that never really got on a good, solid, firm page with Aaron Rodgers. Obviously, he was going through his rehab for most of the offseason, and I think at one point he said that Aaron has so detailed in the ways that he does things. And look, it's tough for any player to switch teams in the middle of the season, and you just kind of wonder how quickly he'll be able to get on the same page of Russell Wilson and the right hand and the left hand kind of know what each other's doing. So that might play into limited menu, limited snap count for him overall. But I'm with you. I'm interested to see how much kind of big slot usage they have on him. And then, another thing is when there are two wide receivers on the field and in kind of more predictable run situations, how he fares in those instances as a run blocker.
Yeah, so we'll see. Williams did say there was some maybe small benefits from Zach Azzani, the current receivers coach, being with the Jets last year. And so he said formationally, a lot of the language and kind of usage in teachings is fairly similar to what he already had with the Jets. Now, those two did not work together, Azzani and Williams. Williams came over this offseason, obviously, but there's a little bit of carryover that may accelerate that process. So we'll see. It's always unpredictable. These guys on a moving train, how quickly they'll pick things up. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't, but we'll take it game by game.
All right. Let's see. He talked. He gave more hints that Cordell Patterson will be back and how that would impact the usage. And in so many words, said they're not afraid to go with kind of the hot hand if one of these, Najee Harris, Jaylen Warren, or Cordell Patterson gets hot. Obviously, the last time we saw Cordell Patterson was when he was getting hot, but he got injured in that game, I believe, against the Colts there. But then went on to also Arthur Smith added that, look, Najee's been absolutely fantastic and, probably going to continue to get the bulk of the work there reading in between the lines, but not afraid to go with the hot hand should one present itself in this game.
Sure. Smith has always had I shouldn't say always. In Atlanta, he had a committee approach. Of course, in Tennessee, it was a Derrick Henry show, and rightfully so. But yeah, the little mix and match. I'm excited that these guys will be healthy as a trio for really the first time all season. I know they technically were together early in the year, but Warren was off the hamstring injury, then had the knee in week 3 against the Chargers, and so really never got that group going in a good direction with all them feeling fully available. And so that should be the case in this game with Harris, Warren, and Patterson. And so having that versatility should be good. Harris will still be the, lead back overall. Warren on third downs, mixing in on early downs, obviously. And then Patterson probably having a couple of snaps here or there and some situational type stuff. So it'll be good to have fresh legs, though, no matter who's in the game.
Agreed.
Should note, by the way, just quickly for the jersey numbers for the new Steelers, Mike Williams and Preston Smith will be wearing their old numbers from the previous stops. Williams will wear the number 18 he wore with the Jets, and Smith will wear the number 91 he wore with the Green Bay Packers.
All right. Anything else from Arthur Smith that stuck out to you?
No, that was really it overall, to be honest with you. Teryl Austin talking about Preston Smith and, talked about why this move was made. And obviously it's not his call, but I think his read of the situation was this is a Steelers team that lost a bunch of their guys a couple weeks ago and Highsmith and Herbig, and then had to put a lot on Jeremiah Moon, and talked about on the last show, having to sign some guys, Ogundeji, and elevate some people. And, you really want to insulate and protect yourself against injuries happening again. So I think Pittsburgh felt the pain of that before and said, we don't want to have that happen again, especially late in the season for a playoff run or postseason, chance. And so let's really get as much good depth as possible.
Yeah, and he was also asked, and obviously we'll find out the status of Nick Herbig here fairly soon. I doubt that goes up to game time with him, but it obviously could. Was asked about, do you try to script how much T.J. Watt and Alex Highsmith play, or they come out if they're tired? In so many words, says, look, those guys, if they want to play every play, you let them play every play. If they can't, they come out and get a break and go back in when they're ready. Even so, let's assume Nick Herbig does not play. You would expect to see Preston Smith cut his teeth in this defense. I thought it was interesting that Preston Smith was kind of up front about saying, look, I asked for a trade. I wanted out of there. They had switched from a 3-4 to a 4-3 defense. He talked about how he's most of his time obviously has been in the 3-4. That's where he's most comfortable with. You got to think that he's thrilled and it seems thrilled to death to come back to a system that he's played most of his career in. We'll see him in this game, right? And the second question is what all has stuck out in the last couple of days here when you've dug deeper into Preston Smith?
Yeah, he should play in this one, especially if Herbig doesn't go. He talked about it's like riding a bike, in terms of the system that he's been in. As you said, the Packers hired Jeff Hafley, the former Boston College head coach, and they changed the scheme and system, which seems to be working well, but some guys just don't fit. And Smith is better out there in the 2-point stance, playing out there on his feet. You've probably done a little more tape diving on the Smith than I have so far, but just more of the same. He's got size, he's got length, he's still strong, can still set the edge against the run. And there's probably still some pass rush power to be had there that is going to minimize the drop off. Obviously, you take TJ Watt out of the game, you're going to experience a drop off there in terms of how teams block you and in terms of just the overall talent and skill set. But you're going to reduce the margins of that decrease when you have a really good core four once Herbig comes back. A Watt, Highsmith, Herbig, and Smith we talked about earlier last week or so. Is it the best top three of Highsmith, Watt, and Herbig? You add Smith into the mix. Again, guys, fresh legged. There really are no reps off. We sit there and say, okay, we're not going to get a real good rush on this play because we got our top two guys off the field. So that's going to be just a big benefit.
Look, I don't know how much he's going to play. He's obviously going to play in this game, and if they don't have Herbig, that's not a bad top three to have. But you go further, and once you get Herbig back in this is without a doubt the best. Got to be the best top four that of edge rushers the defense has had. So I like the fact that he's able to play on both sides. He's able to defend a run still fairly well. He's had some good pressure moments throughout the season. Obviously, he's not the same player that he was, 2, 3, 4 years ago, but this is a guy that can still get it done. And, the Steelers obviously going to be trying to stop the run, that Washington run game this week. So when he's out there, that'll be a key factor to look at especially some of these zone reads because teams are probably going to try. Washington's probably going to try to run away from T.J. Watt. So when he's out there, or whoever's out there, Alex Smith, regardless, going to try to run to that side. But for what they gave up and for what they're having to pay for a guy that's been there, done that type of guy, even at his age, really do like and it was a surprise. I think we talked about this the other day. Didn't really see this one coming with him, but like the addition.
And Austin also separately seemed to hint at Beanie Bishop still having a role in this defense, even with Cam Sutton back. He says, quote, Austin does, we like where Beanie is. Beanie still has to continue to write his story. We're only halfway through his rookie season. I'm not going to hand Beanie the keys to the car and say he's arrived and all that different stuff. Later says, quote, I think he'll continue to do that, as in playing well. That's why I expect to see him out there. I mean, that's not a given. So a little hedgy on it, but I still think you're going to see Beanie out there in his slot role, especially this first game with Sutton off suspension. And especially if Edmonds does not go with the illness, that's going to really open up an opportunity for Sutton to slide right on in as that 6DB and dime packages.
You're going to have some fun charting this thing to see where's Cam Sutton.
Yeah, you're going to have that versatility, that flexibility to be able to do post-snap rotations, to align him all over the place. And that's just going to help unlock this offense, the defense, I should say, all the more.
What do you think about Teryl Austin's answer to the question about Minkah Fitzpatrick?
Yeah, I mean, I understand the drought that Minka's in, no interceptions, not many splash plays this year, but Austin talked about there's an intangible aspect to Minkah where teams don't throw his way, where he's occupying the middle of the field and it forces quarterbacks to go elsewhere. And so that's not something you can really quantify on tape, but if you watch the tape, you could still see it and feel it. And the lack of big plays allowed over the middle of the field is certainly one factor in that. I remember back to one play against the Jets where Aaron Rodgers down in low red zone, he wanted to throw his first read left seam to a receiver, but Minkah was there, and then Rodgers comes off of it and throws the ball elsewhere. And so just little moments like that of, okay, let's not test that throw where number 39 is at. But I understand, his whole claim to fame for Minkah is the picks and interceptions. I'm sure he's as anxious as anybody to get one of those picks, and hopefully with Sutton's return, I know Daniels is playing great football. I know the Commanders are doing an unbelievable job of taking care of the football, but hopefully this can be the week where that splash play occurs.
Yeah, not even one. Maybe once you take the get the lid off the jar, yeah, maybe you get multiple. And boy, and once again, the key thing that Mike Tomlin said, and you reiterated there, is Washington's really doing a good job of taking care of the football. So turnovers could be huge in this one, especially with us. At least I'm thinking that both these offenses are probably going to be able to move the football down the field on each other between the 20s, and turnovers, short fields could end up playing a huge part in this game. And it would be great to see Minkah, I don't know, force a fumble, get a tipped interception, just flat out steal an interception, something along those lines, moving into the second half of the season.
It was sort of funny. I'm pulling up the transcript of the question of Minkah has mostly been center field. Would you like him to be other things than that? When last year we said, can we put Minkah in center field?
Right.
It's not being used there enough. So it's funny to kind of see the yin and yang of it all. But I'm happy with how he's been used and deployed. He should be a free safety. Him in the box last year. I get some of the reasons why that had to be and how that had to occur without a real strong and defined strong safety. Have that in Deshaun Elliott, which has been incredibly crucial. And we knew that from the onset, just from the role, and then the actual really good play of Elliott's been even better. But I like Minkah in his role. You just hope that something goes his way. And as you said, there often is a domino effect where you get one interception and you kind of get on a hot streak. And so we'll see.
Yep.
Anything else from Smith or Austin that caught your attention, Dave?
Yeah, nothing hugely, especially for the length of this show.
Yeah, true. All right, Dave. Any players this week? Russell Wilson speaking had similar good things to say about Mike Williams, Cam Hayward. Don't know if anything super notable came out of him. Najee Harris promises to not attempt the backwards hurdle that Saquon Barkley did. So that's probably a good thing for all parties involved. In Pittsburgh, we'll have to see Barkley later this year. We'll be talking about the backwards hurdle, I'm sure.
Yeah, and he'll still do the front hurdles, I'm pretty sure,
yes.
though.
Front hurdles, yes. Backwards hurdles, no.
All right. Yeah, I'm trying to things that roll out. And I think what did Najee have anything big to say? It doesn't seem like he had anything big to say. And I know what TJ Watt speaks today. Russell Wilson praised everybody on the roster again. He's
including
good
Scotty Miller.
Yeah.
His 2 catches.
He's good at that, and about the fit of Mike Williams and all. Any other players say anything super notable?
I don't believe so. So I think we covered all the highlights there. So Dave, let's talk to our beat writer of the week. Got a great one this week. That is Ben Standig for The Athletic. You can follow him on Twitter at Ben Standig, and he also is the host of the popular Last Man Standing podcast. We'll take a pause and come back with Ben.
And welcome back to the Terrible Podcast. It is Friday. It is week 10 in the NFL. It is the Pittsburgh Steelers traveling to take on the Washington Commanders on Sunday, 1:00 Eastern time on CBS. And as usual, ahead of a Steelers game, we like to have a beat writer who covers the opposing team on the podcast to talk about the upcoming matchup. This week, we have a first-timer on the Terrible Podcast. That would be one Ben Standig. Ben covers the Commanders for The Athletic. He has a podcast, a great name of the podcast with his last name as well, too, called The Last Man Standig, Standig. That's a great name. You can follow Ben on Twitter/X at Ben Standig, all together BenStandig. And obviously, you should be reading his work on The Athletic. We'll have a link to his author bio in the post as well. So with that, Ben, happy Friday. Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.
I appreciate the invite and the introduction, and yeah, glad to be here. This is a very interesting game from this perspective. So yeah, I'm excited to talk about it.
All right, 5-star matchup this week. Two teams having great starts to the season here. The Commanders, I think 7-2 at this point, obviously with rookie quarterback Jayden Daniels, who's been absolutely fantastic so far. Let's start with him in particular. Coming out of the draft and knowing what you knew about Jayden Daniels coming out, and then obviously into the start of the regular season, and then up until kind of the midway point here, Ben. What has, and it's probably going to be hard to answer this because there are so many fantastic positive things about him. What has been the thing about Jayden Daniels that's kind of maybe surprised you, or has been the most impressive thing about him out of all that he's doing?
Yeah, no, it is a long list of things to talk about with Jayden Daniels in a positive sense. I think, look, when he came out, right, and whatever we're all doing to study the draft, it is mostly we watch the games, maybe you're putting on some highlight tapes, things like that. And clearly the athleticism stood out, right? I mean, it's not just he's throwing for 300 yards, he's running for $150 in touchdowns, and he's crushing souls, as Adam Peters talked about when they drafted him. That was what he saw when he was watching the game tape, and all that's very accurate. And he also throws a very nice deep ball. He's much more of a he's not a pocket passer, but he's much more of a better passer, more of a pure quarterback than I think people recognize or think because of the other aspects. But I think the part that to me that has really stood out pretty quickly is the person. And I'm not talking about that he's Mother Teresa. I don't mean that. I just mean that, back in the Senior Bowl, and I went down there, he wasn't there, but some of his teammates were there, people who played against, and I was like, tell me about the guy. And they were all kind of like, he's got this quiet confidence about him. He's not a rah, look at me, egotistical guy, but there's a quiet confidence. The players felt that, recognized it. They saw what he does to work in the building, and we follow him, right? Okay. Is that, that kind of sounds like what they all might say, but okay, I take that note. It then progressed to similar vibes when they got to OTAs. The veteran players are saying they think they get to the building early and Jayden Daniels has already beaten them by a half an hour or so, that he is one of the guys, that he doesn't put himself aside because he's the quarterback and try to be above everybody, that he gets along with everybody, that he's got this chill vibe. And then as it kept progressing, the coaches would say the same thing and everybody would say the same thing. And then I would keep watching him. And then, to the point, I mean this with love. He's almost got kind of boring at a press conference in part because he doesn't let anything get him too high or too low. If you saw the Hail Mary play, right? I'm sure you saw it, but like right after he's talking to Tracy Wolfson, and I keep making the joke, like based on his like emotional level, you would have thought he's just the guy waiting in line at the deli for a sandwich. Like there was no like I just threw the greatest play ever vibe. And that to me is what I think has been a big deal, because combined with Dan Quinn being this sort of people person coach, trying to reset the culture, the vibe, the mindset, to have this rookie come in and immediately be part of it, be mature enough to understand what is being asked of him, he's making no flubs in these regards. Like, I just think that's such a big factor in what's happening, of course, beyond the passing and the athleticism.
Kind of a similar question about Cliff Kingsbury. Obviously, a lot of people kind of wondering if kind of his system, coming over, out of the college ranks into the pros with Arizona, and then taking a little bit of time off there, kind of wondering if this guy's more fit for kind of the college system. Everybody, if you study his history with the air raid and the people that he studied under and all, there were kind of like some perceived, I think, thoughts that maybe this was not going to be an ideal fit for Cliff Kingsbury. But overall, man, when you look at the tape, it's amazing. What has been what you knew about Cliff Kingsbury upon his hiring versus where this offense is now at the midway point season? What has maybe been an underrated or maybe the most impressive thing that sticks out about Kingsbury in this offense at this point?
Sure. Well, look, I mean, when you watch the highlights and you the film nerds are having and I say that with love, the film nerds are having a field day watching Cliff Kingsbury's offense because it does look pretty creative. There's so much movement happening. He's trying to integrate this rookie quarterback, maximize what he can do, but simultaneously trying to take advantage of what everybody else can do. Other than Terry McLaurin, this is not an offense that has dynamic receivers. Zach Ertz is having a fine year, but and a lot of people thought his days were done. The offensive line has made some good moves and all that, but there's not like a guy that fans will automatically go, wow, that guy, what a player, what an offensive lineman. He's done a really good job of figuring out what everybody does best, what they maybe need to do less of, or what they need to be hidden, certain things to be hidden. But what I think is, I was raised on Joe Gibbs 1.0, and Joe Gibbs 1.0 came into Washington with this Air Coryell system, right, from his Dan Fouts days, and they came in and that was going to be the plan. And then his first year they start 0-5. And I know a lot of other coaches who I've witnessed it or seen it or heard whatever that would just say, well, we're doing my plan. This is what we are still going to do. I have this idea. This is what we do. It was like that way when Steve Spurrier came here with his fun and gun. I think to some degree it was like this last year with Eric Bieniemy, right? He's calling 50 passes a play when you basically have a rookie quarterback and a weak offensive line, those kind of things. Joe Gibbs, though, 0-5, he's like, no, the heck with this. I've got a good offensive line. I've got this running back in John Riggins. We're going to go that way. They pivoted. We saw what happened. They win a Super Bowl, go to another. But then later in his years, he has these receivers, Art Monk, Gary Clark. He's got these deep throwing quarterbacks. He switched it up and went, let's go, bombs away. Cliff Kingsbury, I was concerned. Which way is he going to be? My system, or let me adjust? And he said, and it's shown that he spent his year away. He was at USC, but his year away from the NFL after getting fired, looking at what he was doing. If I'm going to keep doing this, he said, what is not working? Why, essentially, why are my teams in Arizona starting hot and then fading as the year goes on? What's the problem? And he did seem to do an honest deep dive into what that is. And, to the degree that he's changed things up, you'd have to talk to him to an extent, but he did it seems like he did recognize that, hey, I'm getting, I'm going too much in this tendency. I'm being too much in this way. I'm not factoring in this. And it's been wildly impressive. I mean, as great as Jayden Daniels is, and give a lot of credit to Dan Quinn, Kingsbury's play calling has been, off the charts. I mean, I don't know about you guys. I've never seen a play, which he did. It was a flea flicker to a running back screen. Yeah, it was baffling. It was like, wait, what just happened here? And it's been stuff like that all season.
Real quick before I turn it over to Alex, here is the biggest consternation about the offense, and it's hard to nitpick it when you look at it on the all 22 and all. Is it the red zone production at this point?
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, Austin Seibert, who they picked up in week 2 when they couldn't figure out their kicking situation, he's been pretty phenomenal. He's largely been, missed the kind of had one blocked and whatever, but he's kicking a lot. And there was the week 2 game when they were still figuring things out, and they scored on every single possession, but every single possession was a field goal. And I have Seibert on my fantasy teams, and I've not been disappointed by his production because he's getting like 3 and 4 attempts a game, it feels like. So yeah, I do think that's the concern. In terms of taking this thing to another level. They've had no issues moving the ball, punching it in. And, that's the thing, right? Like, again, other than McLaurin, they don't have like an obvious other receiver. Noah Brown gives him some good size, but, he's a fine player, but like, he's not a definitive starter. Zach Ertz is another guy, gives you some size, but, clearly he's on the back end of his career. So they don't have that sort of one obvious guy, but that's probably the next step for them. If they can figure that out over the second half of the year, be more efficient there, good luck stopping them based on everything else that's happening.
It's a similar story in Pittsburgh. Siebert and Boswell are the top 2 NFL kickers this season, so mirrored images of each other offensively in that regard. I think, Ben, the most impressive stat of all the impressive things Washington is doing this year is taking care of the football. 3 turnovers in 9 games? I believe that's an NFL record over that span. Is there anything special they're doing? Has there been especially good luck on their side? What is it that's keeping those turnovers so low?
Definitely been some luck. I mean, how could it not be, right? I mean, Jayden Daniels is pretty accurate all year, but balls get tipped in the air, or receiver slipping or whatever. Like everything seems to be going their way. I.e., the Hail Mary is not a turnover, but like that play wasn't out of whack for the vibes for what they've been doing all season. Like it felt like everything is just kind of bouncing their way. But I would, in terms of Jayden Daniels, though, I mean, he's just, again, what makes him so impressive is that as a rookie, he is both aggressive and careful with the ball. The throws that he makes, I'm sure people of you and your listeners have seen some of the highlights. It's bonkers where he's putting the ball placement, whether it's, when the receiver's in some traffic, or there's like, there was a touchdown pass to McLaurin last week at the end of the first half, where like he throws it to like the back shoulder. There's like only a few seconds left in the first half. It's either he's going to squeeze that ball, or they're going to kick a field goal. And it was just perfect. And like, it really is kind of nuts the way he keeps doing that. So he's both aggressive, but very pinpoint accurate and cautious. He's not making the, careless mistakes that you would see, typical rookies make. And that is a big factor here as well.
I want to talk about the offensive line a little bit. The skill guys get all the attention. Tell me about Brandon Coleman. I liked him coming out of TCU, played some tackle, played some guard, got full-time left tackle work last week. I'm going to assume that Cornelius Lucas will miss this game as well, and Coleman will start. How has his play been this year?
Yeah, as we're talking right now, I'm going to assume Lucas will be out as well. Look, the finding the quarterback is, of course, the big thing, right? But beyond that, the offensive line was the next thing that I think concerned most people, rightfully so. They gave up over 60 sacks last year. There's a combination of reasons why it wasn't just the line, but there were concerns, and they didn't have on the offensive line, like they kept Lucas, who's been a pretty solid swing tackle, but not a typical starter. And Andrew Wiley was at right tackle as one of their holdovers. And, he was on some Super Bowl teams with Kansas City, but, he's not, this isn't Joe Jacoby and Jim Lachey for all you old heads out there who remember Washington's offensive lines. Or more recently, Trent Williams. But so it was a big question. Then, they draft Daniels. They explored trading up in the first round. Didn't happen. In the second round, they traded down initially from their second round pick, rather than like maybe force taking a tackle there. And then when they finally take Coleman in the third, I think a lot of people are like, oh, really? You waited this long? I mean, this guy, a lot of people are saying he should play guard. And so far, it looks like another guy that Adam Peters and the front office have done a great job of figuring out. He's like the nicest, sweetest kid when we talk to him, but he's a mauler out there. His fellow linemen are just like, this guy's huge. He's strong. He's athletic. He's, he's got the mental approach. So it's been impressive. And, if by the end of this year, they come out of this going, okay, we have a quarterback and we have our left tackle for the foreseeable future. I mean, that's a pretty massive win, especially when the guy was taken in the third round. If you think that after a rookie year, the way linemen kind of go these days, I think that'd be impressive. And I think he's at least trending in that direction.
Moving over to the defensive side of football, kind of head coach Dan Quinn's bread and butter, if you will. This defense is kind of had some raw moments there, especially against the run, some 10-yard gains overall, but obviously it looks like they're getting sack production. I mean, out of all people too, Dorrance Armstrong and Dante Fowler They're a 4-down unit. They blitz occasionally here. Bobby Wagner, boy, Mike Tomlin has for years gone on about Bobby Wagner, and that guy's still getting it done at his age overall. But what would be kind of the top 2 or 3 concerns about this defense, at least heading into this game? Is it the ability to stop the run? It looks like they use, they like to play some lighter boxes more times than not, try to keep a lid on things overall with 2 deep safeties, or at least covering for the big play over their heads. But what has been kind of the things that have stuck out, negatively, or concerns about this defense?
Yeah, for sure. Well, broadly, if you had asked me this question 3 days ago, I would have said cornerback is at the top of the list. That, they have, again, credit to the coaching staff. They've found ways to sort of cover up, paper over some big deficiencies there, but they've been toasted by number 1 receivers all year, and some of the better quarterbacks they faced have all had big games. But then they go out and acquire Marshawn Lattimore right before the trade deadline. Now, I don't know that he will play this week, which is why maybe for this specific game that doesn't matter. It will help them long term. He came in with a hamstring injury, did not practice the first 2 days. Plus, he just got here, so between the injury, not knowing the playbook, I'm guessing he won't play this week, but we'll find out later. But beyond that, specifically for this game, yeah, their run defense has been pretty poor. Every opponent's had at least 95 yards. Last week, the Giants got 164. The week before that, they gave up over 200. So that is definitely an issue. And, I think part of their 7-2 record, if people might think, oh, wow, they, did a good job of, building this team for this to happen. They didn't do that. This is I'm not saying it's luck. I'm just saying they didn't go in all in this offseason and spend crazy money to get a lot of guys. It was all about starting from the baseline, building the culture, that type of deal, to change the mentality and then go from there. But it's also translated into wins for reasons we've discussed and others. But they still don't have a ton. They don't have, I don't think, the requisite talent on defense to be a real contender against whoever you think are the better, quarterbacks out there that are probably going to be in the playoffs. So they got to shore up the run defense. I do think whenever Lattimore is able to come out there, that'll help, not because he's some great run defender, but if he can cover guys with man, then that's going to let them, be able to use, players elsewhere, and maybe even, have some other guys pinch towards the box. They pretty much only play nickel. So I think that's another factor here. Jeremy Chin is often like a third linebacker. He's a hulking safety, but it's not necessarily the same thing. And then also, when you rotate your defensive line, that teams do, they had Jonathan Allen, a 2-time Pro Bowler. He's out for the year with a pectoral injury. So now, and then, the defensive ends, like Dorrance Armstrong was a guy they signed, and Fowler is having a surprisingly good year, but the ends and their backups, that's a big priority for the offseason, I would say. So they've got guys who are functional, who are playing maybe over their heads a little bit, but they don't have crazy talent. So I think the run defense is a huge problem. And for this week specifically, the cornerback, and Russell Wilson being able to throw a deep ball, I think that is where Pittsburgh can make some hay if Lattimore's not out there.
We did a lot of study on Mike Sainristil out of Michigan, thinking that he was, and we were pretty confident he was high on the Steelers draft board. Obviously, I think went in the second round to Washington. What has been the overarching thoughts of that young nickel here at the half point season?
Well, I think it tells you a lot about him as his mentality, his passion for the game, and his smarts, that he is completely being played out of position. They drafted him to be a slot guy. He's not the biggest corner, 5'10", $180, but they've had no choice but to play him outside, even if he's giving up a lot of height to some receivers because all their other options fell apart. And yet he is so, like I said, he's got such a good feel for the game that it's worked enough. They still plan to move him back into the slot. That's one of the things this Lattimore trade is going to do. But I think it's going to help him and the whole defense now. But just the fact that he's been okay, well, we're kind of screwed here. Emmanuel Forbes from our 2023 first round pick, that's not working. We brought in Michael Davis from the Chargers as a vet. Week 2, Malik Neighbors torched him. He hasn't been in the rotation since. And they settled on, okay, let's take the 5'10" corner, rookie corner, play him out of position on the outside and hope for the best. And again, their pass defense is a concern, but he's been a gamer. He is willing to throw his body in there to hit guys. So I think everybody's been pretty impressed by what they've seen. He fits the mindset that they're trying to create here. And again, I think now he's got a chance to play his more natural position where they see him long term once Lattimore is ready, and that should only help him gain even more comfort with the NFL game.
Ben, second round pick Johnny Newton seems to be coming on strong. Had that foot injury pre-draft. I know limited him throughout the process. He's got, I think, a bunch of tackles, a bunch of quarterback hits. His first sack the last couple of weeks. Is he seeing more action? Do you feel like he's coming into his own right now?
Yeah, so he missed the entire offseason, basically. He had right after the draft. So he had a Jones fracture surgery right in January. They discovered this after the season at the University of Illinois. He has that. Okay. Then they draft him, and once they do the physical, they're like, oh, we think you're going to have surgery on the other foot. So then he misses not only all the OTAs, he then basically misses training camp. He was technically active, but very limited. Wasn't doing much. Mm-hmm. Didn't play the first game. And then they have Daron Payne and John Allen. So he's only getting a limited work here and there. They're working him back up physically, all that stuff. Then Allen gets hurt in week 6. Newton's had to play more and more. Now, I don't know where you guys are on PFF's grades. Well, everybody
in Pittsburgh, it can be a little dicey with the TJ Watt stuff. Yeah.
Sure. I mean, everybody, I think, has their qualms about it, and I get it. But to use that as a metric, in the last 2 games, in terms of interior linemen, they have Johnny Newton ranked 3rd overall among all interior linemen. He's been up there. It's not like insane stats, but he's been up there. He's getting hurries. He's getting QB hits. Recovered a fumble, kind of went right to him, but still did it. He's been effective, and you talk to the coaching staff, and they're like, yeah, he's rounding into shape. He's getting his legs back under him, and he's got just such explosion. He's powerful. I talked to his coach, Brett Bielema, right after the draft, and he was like, look, I think he would have run a sub 4.8 40 at basically 300 pounds if he had not had the surgery. So we're only just starting to see what he can do, but what we have seen already just in the last couple games is impressive. And this is more of a long-term issue, but here Allen has got 1 year left on his deal. He's got this injury. I think it's likely he's going to be a cap cut. And it's not just who's going to replace him. It's like, oh wait, they have a guy who actually might be, worthy of being a 1-for-1 replacement sooner than later. So yeah, I think Newton's been impressive. Again, he's a rookie. He's figuring things out, but yeah, it's been a pretty good go the last couple of weeks for sure.
My last question for you, Ben, then I'll let Dave finish things out. I feel like I'm on an NFC East tour of asking about first-round corners that were taken over Joey Porter Jr. We had a Giants guy on a couple weeks ago about Deontay Banks. You guys took Emmanuel Forbes. I know you referenced some of the issues of cornerback. It seems like it has just not gone well for Forbes. I know the big concern with him coming out was the weight and the lack thereof. I know he does have a pick this year, but what's kind of gone wrong with Forbes?
We can all look at the tape and we can, he's got to do a better job of getting leverage when the receiver does this or whatever. Sometimes it's just what's going on between the ears. And, I don't want to speculate too much because I don't know what's going on in his head, but just watching him, his body language, he got torched last year. They threw him out there, in situations against guys like AJ Brown and just got torched. And it's not saying it's even his fault, but just that's how it went. And I think some of those early struggles really hurt his confidence, and it has been hard for him to get it back. I talked to, he was put on the trade block prior to the deadline. I'd heard that from a few different teams, and one team told me, hey, we liked him coming out, all-time leader in interceptions return for touchdown at D1 or whatever, FBS. We liked it, but you watch him and you're like, boy, not only is he thin, and that's been an issue with run defense, he's not really engaging there, but you can just see he doesn't have the swagger that you need at that spot and that he had earlier. And, it would make it hard, this person was saying, for us to think that we could, do something with that. And I think that's a lot of it here. I think this new staff tried. I think there was a lot of reasons to think that Forbes, with his ability to be a playmaker and the way these coachings coming from Dallas want to be aggressive on the outside and get the pass rush married with these aggressive corners, playing press man, things like that. You would think it would have been a potentially good fit. It just hasn't worked. And he was a healthy scratch in week 6. last week he was active, but he was the only player except for the backup quarterback to take 0 snaps anywhere. And now with this Lattimore trade, I had to do a story up today on The Athletic for what's going to be like second half predictions, frilling journalism. And one of my takeaways was I don't think Forbes is active the rest of the year, barring injuries elsewhere. He doesn't play special teams. They're not using him at corner. So what this means going forward, I don't know. But yeah, it just the confidence thing just feels like it's been a real struggle.
As impressive as this offense looks on tape, man, all the eye candy and the motion and the misdirection and the offensive lineman on the move, and then you factor in Jayden Daniels' ability on these read option keepers and the scrambling. They just and then haven't even talked to you hit on the deep passing ability of him. Is the best way to, obviously the Steelers are going to try to shut down the run first and foremost. Good luck with that overall. But is it just merely just trying to keep this offense behind the chains as much as possible and make Jayden Daniels throw the football more than, 22, 23 times a game? And then obviously when they do move the football down the field, they've had the struggles in the red zone. The Steelers have been fairly good in the red zone defensively. Is this what this is going to come down to when we look, when we stat book scout this after the fact, was keeping them behind the chains and then just keeping them out of the end zone when they're down low?
That sounds about right. I mean, I'm not the biggest X and O's kind of a guy. I mean, it's part of the job. I'm just saying I don't swim in that end of the pool too deep. It's
impressive. Let me tell you, it's impressive.
Oh yeah, no. But what I'm saying is that in watching him and what I do see and talk to people, I don't know what the answer is. He's been that good. Sure, if you make a team a little more one dimensional, then certainly that can help. If you make them facing second and third and long, obviously that's going to help any situation. If you can find a way to take Terry McLaurin out and make the other guys who have been good, but just there's not like another dynamic player, that's going to help as well. But he has just been so good. And his ability to get out of the pocket and get on the move. It's sometimes we talk about these quarterbacks. Oh, they're mobile. He can get away. Okay, sure. But like most of the time, it's just pretty standard stuff. Pass rush comes in, you run that way and hope for the best. Watching him, it's like he's in slow motion in the Matrix sometimes. Like you're just like, wait, he doesn't even look like he's moving that fast, but yet he does seem to see the play unfolding in kind of slow motion. I don't know if you guys have paid enough attention. You may have heard it because clearly you guys are into football, but like his use of virtual reality technology that he started doing at LSU, and he's kept it up here. And he's talked about how it's just made such a big deal. He cranks it up. So for those who don't know, it's literally like he can watch the play unfold in seeing it how it's going to be in Northwest Stadium this week, or if they were playing up in Pittsburgh. Like he can see the whole thing. Cliff Kingsbury talks the plays into an audio recording, so then Daniels then hears it and hears Kingsbury's voice as he's going through the plays, and he says he cranks all this up to the highest level speed possible. So then when the game happens, it feels slow. It feels normal, and he plays like that. So I don't want to get too much like he's Neo, he's the one, but boy, his mental part, his ability to see what is unfolding in front of him and not panic finding an out, it just makes it so complicated to say, well, just do this or do that, because he has that extra gear. But yeah, I think the basics, make the offense more one dimensional, keep them second, third, and long. And of course, if you get a lead, then he's going to, it takes away some of their ability to have a balanced offense. Those are the standard things to go for. But I don't know the weakness right now that says do this and Jayden Daniels he won't be as challenging.
Looking at, we're recording this before the Friday injury report, before you get out there and all, but Marshawn Lattimore has not practiced since being traded for. Cornelius Lucas has not practiced because of an ankle. And then Cleveland Farrell is the other one at DNP on Thursday. What's your best guess as far as the status of all three of those guys?
Well, if I had to guess, I would guess Lucas maybe sits another week since he has not been out there. And, because of Coleman, they have a viable starter for now. Farrell's been a guy that's been on the injury report kind of all year. Some weeks he plays, a couple times he just hasn't. So that one probably is a little more 50-50, but it doesn't seem like it's, I don't know. I think it's just a lingering issue. I don't know if it's like something new that they have to figure out. And Lattimore, like I said, between the fact that he was out last week with the Saints with a hamstring injury and he's just getting here, and next week they play on a Thursday against the Eagles, which is, no offense, a much more important game for them because of the division aspect of it, right? So I can see them letting him heal up, letting him learn the playbook, and then having him next week. I think the one to watch, though, is Brian Robinson. He's been limited all this week, their leading rusher. He was limited all last week, and then was a game time decision. And literally right before the game, they were testing it on the field and decided he couldn't go. And it's been that way this week. If he's not available, they still have been very effective because of Kingsbury, and guys like Austin Eckler have done a good job. But Robinson gives them that real power. He gives them, that I'm just gonna run over you energy. And of course, that's great for the red zone as well. So that is needed. They can still run the ball without him, but it does change both what they can do and the mindset if he's not there. And I don't know that we're definitively sure he's any better ready to play this week than he was last week. But again, last week it was 90 minutes before the game they called it, so maybe he's done enough to say, okay, I think I can go.
All right, Ben, this is the time when we ask our beat writers to make a prediction for the game, if you will. Score prediction. Feel free to throw that out there. Steelers, Washington hasn't beaten Pittsburgh in Washington in quite a while here, but obviously this is a different team, and you got to throw history out of the book. How do you see this game going on Sunday?
Yeah, I'm not afraid to make a prediction generally, but this one I'm like, oh boy, let me think about this. So the Commanders they've done a really good job. They also haven't beaten anybody really a ton this year. This would be their best win, I would say, if they get it done. And, I still have questions about their defense. Again, I know the Steelers have their own concerns and this, that, and the other. And, we'll see what Mike Williams means at all, or Preston Smith this week. In this second half predictions, I had to I guess their final record. And for a team that hasn't won 11 games since 1991, I somehow landed on 12 because they're 7-2, and I don't know. But in order for it to be not more than 12, I kind of they have to lose some games, and this one feels like maybe it's one that they lose. But at the same point, I it's hard to pick against Washington, but the way they're playing,
Right.
So I'm super torn. I guess. Don't yell at me, Commanders fans, but I'm going to go something like 17-16 Steelers, something along those lines. Look, they have played with a lot of energy and a lot of passion, and I think that's a huge deal. But I think that when the other team can match that, now it's a talent aspect, and I still wonder, especially on defense, do they have enough? So that's why I think the Steelers. You can tell me if I'm wrong. With Mike Tomlin, you have to beat them. They're not going to just energy-wise not show up. And so based on that, I'm going to go Steelers by a smidge. But, we'll see. Maybe Jayden Daniels has another miracle in there.
All right. Should be a great game. Ben, look, you've been absolutely fantastic. We've held you longer than what we told you we would hold you, but hopefully we didn't hold you up too long. Folks, make sure you follow him on Twitter at Ben Standig. Read his work at The Athletic. We'll put the link in the podcast post. Ben, you were fantastic. Thanks for being on the Terrible Podcast on this Friday morning with Dave and Alex, and enjoy the game.
No, thanks for having me.
And welcome back to the Terrible Podcast. Our special thanks to Ben Standig for his time and just great answers there. Be sure to follow him on Twitter at Ben Standig, and again covers the Commanders for The Athletic and the host of the Last Man Standing podcast. Thank you to Ben for his time.
Absolutely. First timer on the show, and we always kind of lie to him ahead of time saying, we'll put you on about 18, 22 minutes, and inevitably it runs 30 minutes, but got a lot of info out of them. And obviously the Steelers don't play Washington all that often, but hopefully we have set things up now for him to get some good info the next time these two teams do meet. So make sure you follow him on Twitter and reach out to him and thank him for his time. That's important to not only him, but to us as well. Keeps these guys coming back and give us this intel on the opposition before games.
Us going over time, that doesn't sound us. We never do that.
Yeah, always.
We're not built for TV, that's for sure. We
No.
cannot fit into that neat 22 minutes with commercials, 30-minute windows. So that is why we
Especially the way I ramble and stutter sometimes.
All right, Dave, let's preview this game ourselves. Pittsburgh 6-2 atop the. Are they still technically atop the AFC North?
Technically, yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
Technically. And what an interesting game that was Thursday night. Kind of looked like the Bengals, the Ravens came out super flat at first, and the Bengals were able to move the ball and put the ball in the end zone, and then the tide turned in the second half, and ended up being a very, very entertaining game. Came down to the 2-point conversion at the end and some questionable no calls on some penalties there. But the Bengals are in a tough place right now with 6 losses in. You would think that how many more can they lose and get in the playoffs at this point, Alex? 1, 2 more at most if things break absolutely perfectly for them, because that would put them at 9-8 and probably doing a lot of scoreboard watching going into that final week. That was they really needed that game against Baltimore, and they didn't get it. And they obviously have 2 more games, 2 of their games coming on the rest of the schedule against the Steelers. They're in a tough situation right now, and in fact, them making the playoffs. It would seem at this point they would have to be a third AFC North team, barring a collapse by either Baltimore or Pittsburgh, and they're in trouble right now.
Yeah, it's going to be hard to win the division when they're 4-6 and they've been swept by Baltimore this year, even with 2 games still to play against Pittsburgh. 2 of the most exciting games this season have been Ravens-Bengals, and the Ravens have won both of those, the 41-38 overtime game earlier this year, and then winning that one last night, 35-34. But let's pivot to Washington, Pittsburgh 6-2, Washington 7-2. I would say from a national pundit perspective, 2 of the more surprised teams, and probably the analysts didn't think that these teams would be it with their records where they're at entering week number 10. Starting with the Washington offense, number 3rd scoring offense in football right now, of course, led by rookie sensation Jayden Daniels. They're different quarterbacks, obviously, but it has a CJ Stroud type of feel in terms of that rookie quarterback that just changes the whole tenor and culture of the franchise in an instant. Not him alone, obviously, new head coach and Dan Quinn, new GM Adam Peters, new roster, et cetera, but really good offense, and it does start with the quarterback change. So what is your thoughts overall on Daniels and his Commanders offense?
Absolutely fantastic to watch, and obviously got a chance to watch him here and there leading up to prep to this game, but then diving into the 3 most recent tape performances by this offense. A really dynamic quarterback. I think the thing that pops out when you turn on the tape, at least these last 3 games and really as a whole, is their running game under Cliff Kingsbury, who's more notably known as an air raid offense type guy. They have so much eye candy that they work around Jayden Daniels. Sometimes they'll have 2 backs on the field. Sometimes they'll have multiple tight ends on the field. They'll go obviously 11 personnel, but the eye candy alone and the orbit motions and boy, you know me, and I love offensive linemen on the move, right? There is a lot of it in this offense. You'll see same side guard tackles on the move. You'll see guard center on the move. You'll see even two guards on the move. They'll run that wing T buck sweep where they'll have the sidecar running back beside Jayden Daniels, and then they'll pull both the guards, and then sometimes Jayden Daniels will keep it, sometimes he'll hand it off, but there's so much, you better have some eye discipline in this. The first play against the Carolina Panthers kind of backed up a little bit in their own end. They do, some motion there. They put both the running backs in the backfield there. Each running back goes a different way. It's one of those kind of hidden shell games, if you will, the sleight of hand. where did the ball go? And it, if the play action on that, the fake to the running back going to the left was so you lose track of it. The defense lost track of it as well too. And Jayden Daniels keeps it the end on the left side of the Panthers defense, crashes down, and then off he goes off to the races for a huge gain around right end on that one. So there's so much movement with the motion. There's so much movement by the offensive lineman pulling in this offense, and then they use read option or some form of it so much. I'm going to pull up a stat that I pulled here if I can find my likes here overall.
Got to use those bookmarks, Dave.
Yeah, I know. I probably don't use them enough. Let me see what I have here. Dan Orlovsky tweeted out, and it's not surprising, the Commanders' zone read has produced 581 rushing yards so far this season, and no other team is within 200 yards of that. So expect a lot of read options. They'll obviously run some RPOs, and we're just talking about the running game here. And then obviously in the passing game situations, the scrambling ability of Jayden Daniels, you're afraid to turn your back on him. You better have some sort. You better stay in your rush lanes when it comes to them. But this running attack as part of kind of what Cliff Kingsbury likes to do with air raid and specifically with kind of the questions that they had about their offensive line, I think going into this season is phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal to watch on tape. They just do such good sleight of hand, so much eye candy, and that's just a run game. And when it comes to the passing game, Jayden Daniels is obviously a guy that can extend a play, but I think what Cliff Kingsbury has done so well is building concepts off of some of these run looks and the play action. They'll use him obviously a lot in the shotgun, a little bit of pistol. Occasionally he'll be under center, but not a lot. And then his ability to the way he throws the football down the field, especially outside the numbers, specifically, especially if he gets Terry McLaurin lined up one-on-one and able to win on the outside. His ball placements has been good. Overall, he does a great job of keeping them on schedule. Once again, for a rookie to be able to do this and read things that the way he's been able to read things, even his intermediate passing game, I think has been pretty solid overall. And this is going to be a tough offense to contain because of the run game aspect, and then what they're able to build their layers of their passing game off of this. So I am concerned about the Steelers defense in this. I think the worst thing that the Commanders can do coming out here is not be who they've been. And if trying to be too cute and maybe try to come out and throw the ball too much early in this game, because knowing the opposition's going to sit on it. But very impressive on tape. And I think the big thing that I pointed out to Ben here, I think the difference in this game is how many times can we talk about this Washington offense being behind the chains on second down, and then obviously on third down. We'll probably be talking about that, good or bad, after this game. And then they have struggled in the red zone. They're down there towards the bottom of the league. When they move the foot, they're like the Steelers. They move the football between the 20s. But when they get down inside the red zone, low red zone, they've struggled a little bit about putting that ball in the end zone. And that plays into the bread and butter. We've seen this Steelers defense bend but not break more times than not. It feels like there's going to be a good 4 or 5 red zone opportunities for the Washington offense in this game, and how the Steelers defense is able to handle this is going to severely impact this game. That's a lot, but
what I should have checked was, because it's interesting, like you said, they're one of the worst red zone teams in football, but they're third in scoring offense at almost 30 points per game. These two kickers lead the NFL in field goals made. That has to mean they're getting a lot of explosive touchdowns, right? To get scores outside the red zone to still have those points per game. How many touchdowns at 20 plus yards do they have this year? Do we have a number on that? I'm just kind of.
Well, I tell you, if we're looking just on air yards alone, on 20 air yards alone on touchdowns, they don't have. Let's see if I can sort this out real quick. When it comes to
It looks like
20-yard receptions alone, they have just 11 of those. One of those obviously was the Hail Mary against the Bears. That was a touchdown. They have 4 touchdowns of air yards of 20 yards or more. Now, we would have to look at 20-yard gains of not air yards and touchdowns, and I could probably sort that out here real quick for you.
it's looking like 5 touchdowns of more than 20 yards, run, pass, air yards, whatever this year. Plus, they got a long interception return for a touchdown. But yeah, I don't know where that stacks up with the rest of the league, but it is kind of interesting to see those two numbers that don't necessarily jive, poor in the red zone, but really high scoring output overall.
Well, I'll tell you this, I prepped this part for the show today. They have, when it comes to explosive plays, and I'll quantify this, runs of 10 yards or longer. And look, he's got a lot of scrambles in there, but that run's a run. But of 10-yard runs or more, or pass plays that have covered 20 yards or more, they have 36 runs, and they have 30 pass plays of 20 yards or longer. And in total, they have 66 quote unquote explosive plays based on that criteria. And that has them 4th in the league in that number overall. So they are, even though the where do they rank? I mean, that 30 is up there near the top quarter of the league in 20-yard pass plays or more, and then obviously 36 has them in the top quarter of the league as far as that is 10-yard runs or more. So they might not necessarily have these plays ending in the end zone, but they are getting the quote unquote explosive plays, if you will, because they've got 66 on the board, whether it be 10-yard runs or 20-yard pass plays. So they are moving the football in chunks at times, and where they've struggled the most, it seems, is inside the red zone.
Right. I think my 2 overall thoughts to kind of pull back on the Commanders' offense are the diverse skill sets. I think I mentioned this last show about they got kind of different body types at all different positions in different ways. When they got the fast receiver in McLaurin, they got the size receiver in Noah Brown, they got the pass catching running back in Austin Eckler, they have the power running back in Brian Robinson. Again, we'll see what his status is for this game. They run a fair amount of 12 personnel. They run a lot of 2-back sets, pony backfield, where Eckler can split out or be both in the backfield. So there's just a lot of ways they can win. And so you have to kind of deal and sort out all of that. They're not just the one note, okay, we're a speed team or we're a size team. They're a little bit of everything. And then I think what you talked about, because that offense is so multiple, defending the quarterback run element, I think as a defense, you just play slower because you got to read, you got to think, you got to find the ball, you got to key it. And Pittsburgh's all about playing fast, playing physical, not having to overthink too much. And so I'm concerned about Pittsburgh's ability for their edge guys to really get after it and feel confident and aggressive when you're getting so much misdirection and so many different layers to this offense in the screen game, all those things that try to slow you down and make you have to stop and think defensively. That's when Pittsburgh begins to play on their heels. And so overcoming that's going to be really critical.
Yeah, you have to read your keys. You can't have guys trying to do too much. The read option element is going to make it really stressful. It will be a good prep for the overall for the Ravens, even though the Ravens kind of have gone away a little bit from the read option with Lamar Jackson. Oh boy, you got to be more fearful about him throwing the football now than ever before when it comes to him. But just so much eye candy, and just really impressed with the job that these offensive linemen are doing for Washington. They did a great job with DeMarcus Lawrence when they played against him as well too, and they their offensive linemen, when they pull, they seem to more times than not be on target in the right gaps and all. Is just so much movement goes on. And even if they don't have Brian Robinson, man, the other two backs in Eckler and our buddy McNichols, right? He's integrated well in that offense. They're not afraid to use the backs in the passing game either. And even with two of them on the field together, it really is an impressive. It's probably been the most impressive offense that I've seen as far, and it's not like the menu's not all that large. They just put a lot of lipstick on the pig and do so many different things with their base core concepts that makes it look like a lot of different things there. And that's whenever you keep the menu relatively low like that, but are able to make it look like different things and then have success doing it, that makes it even harder on defenses.
Yeah, there's a lot to deal with. And I know you like run success rates. And so their top four rushers this season of Robinson, Daniels, Eckler, and as you said, the one-time Steeler, Jeremy McNichols, all have a success rate above 50%. The only such team with four such players, minimum 30 attempts. And so they're just being really efficient, at least between the 20s in terms of their run game. In terms of the pass game, I think defending empty, they're in empty a lot more than I thought they would be. And even because when most teams go empty, they're in 3-by-2. Washington runs a lot of 4-by-1, where they're going to put four receivers to the field side to make you defend all of that. And so defending empty will be key. Quarterback draw out of empty is always going to be a factor as well. Just James being able to take off on his own. They run a lot of vertical divide routes, and so Pittsburgh, I assume, will play a lot of zone coverage this year, or this game, because A, they played a lot of zone overall this season, and then B, when you face a mobile quarterback like Daniels, you want to keep eyes on the football, and so Pittsburgh will have to be able to match and probably spot drop a little bit less and carry those routes, so their cover three, for example, does not get flooded by multiple vertical routes downfield. So I think that'll be key as well, but just trying to be able to slow down the quarterback run element, which has given Pittsburgh some trouble this year. The Giants game, the Colts game before Richardson went down and got hurt. They're going to have to come up with some answers. The good news is, to have some good news here, is that Pittsburgh has, in some respect, as you mentioned, when they play Lamar, when they play Baltimore, they faced mobile quarterbacks before, and they faced offenses that are kind of funky like this. And so there's some preparation and some things they can lean on to better prepare for a relatively unfamiliar opponent like Washington. So will they use mesh charge and really go after Daniels? Will they slant and scrape? Will they try to really stack the box? We'll have to see, but it's not brand new to deal with some of these problems that Washington will offer.
When you get a chance to hit Jayden Daniels, you better hit him, you know?
Yeah, it's only been sacked 17 times this year in 9 games. So it's been pretty good. And then, of course, can you create a takeaway? I mean, they've only turned the ball over 3 times, and they've not had a turnover since week 5. And they played every game since. They've not had their bye week yet. So, I mean, they're a team that just protects the football. I think it's a record pace in terms of turnovers through 9 games. It's ridiculous.
And that Terry McLaurin, we barely talked to. I think his name only got mentioned once in our talk with him there. But we talked so much about what this team does on the ground, and Terry McLaurin is a very dynamic receiver, especially since after the first couple of games, I think there's a story about him saying, "Look, I don't need to be a one-side receiver," and they've started to move him around a lot more. Daniels has gotten more comfortable with him. They are not afraid if they get ahead of the chains in like a second and short type situation, probably when they're going to try to take their shots, especially outside the numbers on either a 7 route. He likes those kind of, you see a couple of him connect on some over routes as well too. Had a nice play against the Giants, a nice ball placement, kind of back behind the intended, I think it was a tight end maybe on that one there, but he's definitely got the arm strength. We know that. We know he's got some accuracy on the outside. You go back to that game against the Bengals, and that one he dropped in the bucket there. He's had more than a few of those outside the numbers as well too. So I think you just got to get him in enough situations where you know they're pass situations, and try to keep a lid on things, and hopefully he makes a mistake more towards the middle of the field, past 10 yards down the line of scrimmage. I think if you see an interception, a takeaway in this, it's going to be him trying to force the ball between the numbers on down the field a ways in situations where you know he's got to maybe go for the chains or something.
Yeah, or maybe something fluky, a tip pass. You got to capitalize whatever opportunity you get. The fun stat I have is that combined, Pittsburgh and Washington have turned the ball over only 8 times this year. 25 teams in football this season have turned the ball over more than 8 times this year. So even combined, they're doing things that most teams in the league are not able to do. So the turnover differential, turnover battle in general is going to be really key in this one. And I would just say, lastly, I want to see how Pittsburgh defends those pony looks, those two running back looks. Where even if Robinson doesn't play, they're going to put McNichols out there or whoever, and have Eckler as well. Does Pittsburgh play their base? Do they go big nickel? Do they play nickel defense? Want to see that. And also, the all 22 doesn't capture this well. It's the one downside to all 22, but I know they run a lot of no huddle. Washington does. They're going to be at home this week, and so they're going to have more freedom to pick up the pace. And so, how does Pittsburgh handle pace is going to be, I think, another interesting element. Can they get caught in some bad personnel packages potentially? So that's going to be a stressor on this defense as well.
Some of your best defense might be your own offense in this game, jumping on a team and see how they react if they get jumped on the scoreboard. And we've talked several times throughout this season about, can we see the Steelers offense finally jump on somebody and just not go down and first 3 drives and move the football and come away with 9 points in those situations. So it would be interesting, I think, to see how, if they panic, if you get on them, by 2 touchdowns early or something, you get a couple of 3 and outs or something like that, you're able to punch the ball into C, because I think you want them in more obvious situations. You want to get them away from their bread and butter of that run game, especially on early downs. The further you can get them away from the things that they lean on heavily and try to make Jayden Daniels more one-dimensional where he has to throw, the better your chances of maybe coming away with a takeaway or stopping him on a 3rd and long situation.
Agreed. They're a run-heavy team. They run the ball at one of the highest clips in football, in part because they're 7-2, but even through the first 3 quarters, they're running the ball more than anybody else in the NFL. So take them out of that element a little bit, score early, get the crowd out of it, would all be helpful to Pittsburgh winning this game. All right, Dave, flipping over to the Commanders defense, not talked about as much as the offense, not quite as gaudy as the offense, but a good unit and led by a defensive-minded coach in Dan Quinn. They've done a good job this year overall, keeping points down. The run defense, I think, is struggle. That's kind of the one thing that really sticks out to me. They play a lot of too high, it looked like, especially the last couple of weeks. What are your impressions of this Commanders defense?
Yeah, they can be run on, even with the veteran Bobby Wagner there in the middle of it. I think, and obviously that plays into the Steelers' wheelhouse overall of running. I'm trying to pull up real quick the bi-direction type stuff against them so far this season. Defensively rushing, man, they rank towards the bottom quarter of the league, regardless of the direction that you play or go against them on. Most notably, offenses running towards their left guard position, 5.21 yards per carry. Left tackle, 5.3. And they've had kind of a balanced rushing attack go against them where you don't see it overly heavy one direction other than up the middle, where they, I guess, are okay, but even so, 4.73 yards per carry. They've been getting gashed around the ends, especially to left end, 6.54 yards per rushing attempt that way. So the Steelers, and look, another great way to keep that Washington offense from moving the football is not let them be on the field. The best way to defend Tom Brady all those years is don't let him on the field, right?
Right.
Ball control, specifically in the running game, which hopefully or has been the Steelers' bread and butter, is the way that you go here. So I think you can do everything that we've seen the Steelers do on tape so far, regardless of the direction. You've just got to have the success. You got to get, it'd be nice to have Frazier back this week. Some of those duos, some of those zone, in mid-zone runs. You got to get a body on Bobby Wagner and stay on him. So that'll be a fun matchup to watch of how well they're able to get guys out to that second level on those lines. Luvu has had some nice plays this year. Is kind of an off the ball type of guy as well too. So the game plan is very simple for the Steelers. run this thing, try to force them. As you stated, it looks like they've been trying to get away with a lot of light boxes overall. Get those safeties down in the box, chin down in the box. That way you can maybe play action and take your shots down the field against. You got a shorter corner probably, and Sanders still going to have to play outside. Their other corner hasn't. St. Juice has given up some plays down the field as well too. So you want to try to get them where they're vulnerable to get some of those moon balls down there to George Pickens and Mike Williams and Calvin Austin or whoever's out there. That's keep them busy with the ground game. Take your shots down the field up over the top on them.
Remember, Jeremy Chin was supposed to be a Steeler. He turned down more money from Pittsburgh to sign with Washington. Remember, that story came out in the offseason. And so he's playing good ball for them. As Ben said when he spoke with him earlier, the Commanders, they're a 4-3 team, but they really are a 4-2-5 team, with Chin kind of being that quasi linebacker down in the box. They really don't put a third linebacker, true linebacker out there that often. I know some of the top line numbers suggest they don't. They play a lot of single high, but at least for me, the last 2 weeks, when you're in 11 personnel, Washington almost always responds with too high. So if you're in 12, they're going to come out and they're going to stack the box because obviously you're coming out in a heavier personality. But 11 personnel, I know that is a more pass oriented package. But even I was watching the Giants game from last week, and it was a 3rd and 1, and the Giants are in 11 personnel, but the Commanders are playing too high on 3rd and 1, and the Giants just run the ball for a first down and they convert. And so I think Pittsburgh, you may be a little less tight end heavy in this one. I'd be more 11 personnel, put them in too high. Now there's box count at 6-on-6, so you're not maybe gaining an advantage that way, but you are light in the box. I would use a lot of Darnell Washington as my lone tight end at 11 personnel to have my best blocker out there as an inline guy and trust I can win up front with how well this run game has been functioning lately. So I'd be a little less heavy in this one. Whenever you do go heavy, I lean on play action because the Commanders they like to present too high. And then against 12 personnel, they'll try to spin down and add on that strong safety, that box guy late. And so can you kind of catch them in some of those rotations where they're spinning down as you're throwing over the top? So I'd use 11 personnel to run, 12 personnel to pass, kind of flip it on its head in this game. But yeah, I think the edges, Washington has been weaker on. Some of the misdirection stuff they've been a little bit weaker on as well. There certainly is a good chance for Pittsburgh to continue their strong run game against this Commanders team that's lost some guys up front. They lost Jonathan Allen. That was a big loss. They've had some other guys step up, and Ben mentioned Johnny Newton, their rookie, playing better, and they got Phil Mathis there. They got some pedigree up front, but their run defense has not been super successul.
Yeah, you would expect the Steelers to try to bully them here, and obviously, once again, Bobby Wagner got to get a body on him. With MyCole Pruitt, we'll see what happens with him, and if they don't elevate, another tight end, you might be right. Could at the end of this game we be talking about the least amount of usage of 12 and 13 personnel, barring them getting up late in the game and just grinding it out. You make a good point. Try to spread them out with some 11 personnel and see how they react with the safeties on that, and just try to attack it more from a spread. And our big guys can handle the numbers on numbers, even if even will work out in our favor.
Yeah, with the way they're run blocking with Darnell Washington and a big power back in Najee Harris that's running the best he's ever run and having the most success he's ever had. I kind of like where Pittsburgh is at by trying to do that. In terms of coverage, I think Pittsburgh can have success the way that they've had success the last couple of weeks. Washington is more cover 2 zone early downs, and then third down, they're going to man up. They're going to send some of their pressure packages. They're going to play cover 1. They're going to play cover 1 lurk, but they're going to run a lot of man coverage. And Russ is, I think, better against man coverage, as we saw against more man-heavy teams like the Jets and the Giants that want to put some pressure on third down. The Commanders are kind of built in a similar way. And so some of those switch routes and divide routes and those types of things to try to get some picks and rubs could be effective on third down. But gotta watch out for the pressure. I think Commanders are pretty creative on third down. They're going to move some people around. They're pretty energetic and active pre-snap. Watch out for number 92, Dorrance Armstrong. He's kind of all over the place. He'll be over 3 tech. He'll stand up. He'll drop into coverage. Kind of moves around quite a bit, and one of their better pass rushers on the season. So identifying him, but I think beating man coverage on third down will be the key.
I think they're one of the top quarter teams in the league that blitzes as well too, right?
Yeah, they're up there. It's less DB type stuff, at least in the tape that I've watched the last couple of games, but more linebacker type stuff. They're going to run Fire X a lot, which is the old LeBeau hallmark, and so they're going to bring some 5-man pressures. They're going to have some linebacker wraps and some stunts. It's a little less from the secondary, but it is pretty constant from the linebacking group.
Oh, real quick too. If you're going to one final note about that Washington offense, if you blitz Daniels, don't miss. He was it the Giants game? Someone had or the Panthers game. They had somebody come free and looked like a for sure sack, and Daniels avoided him. And you don't miss if you go after him. I don't expect we'll see a lot of blitzing from the Steelers overall defensively, but don't miss if you get a shot at him.
Yeah, just to go back to the offense for Washington quickly, this Pittsburgh, they have to rush less aggressively because you're worried about quarterback contained, letting this guy escape and scramble. I'm just worried about Pittsburgh's defense being a little muzzled, I suppose, in terms of really having to think and be careful and cautious. And that's not when they're at their best. They're at their best when they can fly around, be aggressive, and run and chase and see ball, get ball against Washington. If you do that, you might get burned.
The hard thing about it is seeing the ball. Which way is the ball going, though? If you get too aggressive in those situations, you're going to get burnt by them because of the read options and the misdirection and all the eye candy that goes on. So if you follow, if you too aggressive following them tackles and them guards, you can get burnt the other way against them.
Yeah, that is my primary concern in this game. Any other thoughts here defensively, offensively, special teams? They got a good specialist. They don't punt a lot. They got a good punter in Tress Way. Austin Siebert's kind of been their Boswell, cleaning up some red zone missed opportunities. He's got, I think, 25 field goals made this year. I think Boz is right behind him. Both kickers on pace to set a record for most single season record for most field goals made in a season. I think Eckler's even got some big returns this year. I think Josh talked about that in his report. So they're also a pretty well-rounded group like Pittsburgh.
Yeah. Look, my overarching thoughts really is I expect both these offenses to be able to move the football and whichever team, I think the red zone production, and it's something we've talked about the Steelers as, all season here. We've got to see if they get down in that red zone, 4 or 5 times, we've got to see 3 or 4 of those go in the end zone. And then conversely, the Steelers have been good overall in the red zone, whereas it's definitely not a good week to let Washington figure out their red zone problems in this one. But I'm expecting the ball on both sides of these offenses to move up and down the field. And I think the team that does the better job in the red zone, and then obviously the takeaway stat, which Washington's hard to get the ball away. The Steelers quarterbacks have only thrown 1 interception so far. They're not turning the football over. You might be able to easily look at very easily, because I think both teams are going to have some explosive plays in this one. You might see something like 6 aside with each one. I think when you look at the box score after this, third down conversions, red zone percentages, and then the almighty takeaway column. If you go +2 in this game and in the top stat, explosive play turnovers, that you should be able to declare a winner.
Yeah, I think you said that well, Dave. I'm with you. I think red zone performance and the turnover battle, who can win there, is probably going to be the winner of this game. And that's true for most games, but especially just given that both teams have struggled offensively in the red zone, and both teams do a great job taking care of the football. Something's got to give in this one. And whoever gives, I guess, will lose. But my point, whoever comes out on top in this numbers will win this game.
Can Steeler Nation show up and take over this place and cause a silent count?
I know they're going to represent well, as they always do. It's not a far drive, but I imagine the Washington crowd's coming out more this year than past years because of the excitement, and even just from Dan Snyder no longer owning the team. Just that alone, I think, caused some excitement and some fans to come back and be energized again. And then, of course, you have a great start to the season. You got a real chance to make the playoffs and go on a run here. I know the last time they won the division was in 2020. When they won 7 games, and they're at 7 games right now, in first place in the NFC East, but they got a chance to win. When was the last time they won like 11, 12 games? I have no idea.
It's been a while.
Yeah. So I don't know what the split's going to be. Steeler fans will be there. Will it be enough to put them on a silent count? I'm a little questionable of that, but I'll leave that for others to decide those things.
All right.
Last time they won 10 games was 2012. Last time they won more than 10 games, if I'm reading this right here, 1991. Joe Gibbs, when they won the Super Bowl, went 14-2 that year. So yeah, it's been a while since we've seen a team like this in Washington. So I imagine that fan base is pretty energized by that.
And we've got that old Tomlin versus rookie quarterback stat that comes up every time. Let's see. Per the Steelers pregame game release, Pittsburgh is 25-6 in the regular season under head coach Mike Tomlin when facing a rookie starting quarterback. Tomlin's 25 victories when facing a rookie starting quarterback are tied for the most since the 1970 AFL NFL merger. Now, this rookie quarterback and Jayden Daniels, you got kind of the same vibes as Stroud last year, right? Guy that really is playing well, and an offensive coordinator that's knowing how to use him. So, rookie and all, this is going to be from an offensive side of the football for the Steelers going against their own defense. This is going to be a good litmus test for them, and a test that if they answer it, I think will really make you feel a little bit better against going up some of these other teams later in the season.
Sure, Daniels, like you said, not like many of those other 31 rookie quarterbacks the Steelers have faced under Mike Tomlin, and also a little bit of history between Tomlin and Dan Quinn. Those guys, Dan Quinn was on the coaching staff at William & Mary in Tomlin's senior season, and they coached together in 1995 at VMI, both assistants there. So those guys go back a long ways. I know we talk a lot about, it's when it's Tomlin and McDermott and those types of things, but there's a little Tomlin, Dan Quinn history too that'll be fun for bragging rights.
Agreed.
All right, Dave, let's make our picks for this week, number 10. We'll make the Steelers pick last. Again, a great game on Thursday night between the Ravens and Bengals. Were you rooting for a Ravens win or a Bengals win? I think you said asteroid, but did you really have a preference in terms of which team you wanted to see come out on top?
The more muddled the division can be, I think the better. So I was kind of thinking root for the Bengals.
Yeah,
this one.
I was the same, but it really seems to effectively make this a two-horse race for the AFC North. I know Pittsburgh still has to play Cincinnati twice, but there's a little more clarity of it's probably going to be Pittsburgh or Baltimore.
All right. Let's get into the games this week. Last night you had the Bengals +6. I had the Ravens -6, and I thought I had you there maybe later in that game after it not looking good. But obviously this ended up being a 1-point game. You come out with the W on that one. I am wearing the L on my forehead going into the weekend here. How about the Giants at the Panthers? I know you'll be itching to watch this on another screen. The Panthers are +6.5 against the G-Men.
9 a.m. international game, Giants, Panthers. I'm there. Sign me up. I will take. Bryce Young has looked better. I will take the Panthers.
I'll take the Giants to get right here overseas, even though they're not going to have Slayton for this one. They're a little banged up, but I'll take the Giants late at 6.5. How about the Bills at the Indianapolis Colts? The Colts +3.5 points.
Give me the Bills, Dave.
Give me the Bills as well, too, Alex. Minnesota on the road against Jacksonville. Doesn't seem like Trevor Lawrence is going to go in this one. Vikings on the road laying 7 points against the Jaguars.
Matt Jones should get the start in this one. So there are worse backup quarterback options. And I was a big Matt Jones fan coming out. Didn't get proven right about that one overall. I will take... give me Minnesota.
I'll take Minnesota late at 7. How about the Broncos at the Chiefs? Chiefs laying 7.5 points at home against the Broncos.
The Chiefs just don't cover that often. And the Denver Broncos got whooped by Baltimore. I think they're going to come back with a better plan. Chiefs win, Broncos cover.
I'm going to say the Chiefs finally cover the number here. I'll lay to 7.5. I got to make up some games on you here. Falcons.
We're only a couple games.
Falcons on the road against the Saints. New head coach for the Saints. Falcons laying 3.5 on the road in New Orleans.
There is typically a interim coach bump for that first game whenever a coach gets fired. And with that knowledge, I will take the Saints.
I will take the Falcons to cover the 3.5 on the road. How about the 49ers at the Buccaneers? 49ers laying 6.5 in Florida at Tampa Bay.
Yeah, the Bucks just lack those receivers right now. Give me the Niners.
They're going to get Christian McCaffrey back for this one?
He was back at practice. I forget. Is he returning for this game? I think he is, but I know he's back at practice. I don't know exactly what his status was going forward. I think he's going to play this week. Yeah, expected back versus the Bucks, says Kyle Shanahan.
All right. Let's see here. I will take the 49ers and lay that number. Moving on here, we will talk about the Patriots at the Bears. The Bears laying 6 points at home against the Patriots.
Another game I'm sure we'll both be glued to this weekend. Drake May, he's going to play, I think, in this one. What's the line again? 6 points?
6 points, Bears.
Give me the Patriots.
I'll take the Bears, cover the 6. Titans on the road against the Chargers. Chargers laying 7 points.
Who's going to start in this one? Will Levis was back. Is he going to get the nod? Will it be Mason Rudolph still?
I don't know for sure, but there seemed to be optimism building for Levis.
Right. Just don't know if he's getting the green light to start. Either way, I'll take the Chargers.
I'll take the Chargers lay to 7 points as well, too. Eagles on the road against the Cowboys, who don't have Dak Prescott. I think CD Lamb's beat up a little bit as well, too. Eagles laying 7.5 on the road against Dallas.
Yeah, I know Cooper Rush is going to get the nod there, and it sounds like Prescott may not return at all this season with that hamstring injury. Give me the Eagles.
I'll take the Eagles lay to 7.5. How about the Jets on the road against the Cardinals? Jets laying 2 on the road in Arizona.
Man, Jets favored a lot of games here. Man, Cardinals, give it up for Arizona. I mean, they're just winning. No one talks about them. So I'll show them some love. Give me the Cardinals.
I'll take the Jets lay to 2 points. Detroit on the road against the Texans. The Lions laying 3.5 on the road in Houston.
Is Nico Collins back? I feel like this week is all about me asking about, is this guy healthy and returning?
I don't think he's going to be back.
I don't know. I'm not going to quit on the Texans. Give me Houston.
I'll take the Lions. I'll go the other way. I'll lay the 3.5 points here. That takes us to Monday night. Miami on the road against the Rams, or look like they're going to maybe have at least one offensive lineman back, maybe even Steve Avila as well too. Rams at home laying 1 point against the Dolphins.
Yeah, that O-line health, Dave, like you said, is huge. They got just rocked by injuries early in the season. Give me the Rams.
I'll take the Rams late a point as well, too. I think they're getting healthy at the right time here. That circles us all the way back. 5-star matchup in Washington. Steelers versus Commanders. Commanders are 3-point home favorites in this one.
As I usually am, I'm indecisive in this one. When I was watching the Washington offense, I went, I think I'm going to take Washington in this game. And then I watched Washington's defense and how much they struggled against the run. I think Pittsburgh can exploit it. I went, maybe I'm going to take Pittsburgh's defense or take Pittsburgh to win this one and play good enough defense to hold the Commanders in check. Overall, my pessimistic Alex side comes out a little bit here. I'm with you. I think this game will be more higher scoring. I think Pittsburgh, thankfully, is capable of having a higher scoring game, but I'm taking Washington to win this one 30-28. So Pittsburgh, I suppose, covers, but Washington gets the most important factor, the win.
I approached this kind of in the same fashion as you. Turned on the offensive tape first and was just mesmerized. And in fact, I kept watching it and didn't put as much time as I probably should have in the defensive tape throughout the week. Just watching all these offensive linemen pulling and Jayden Daniels fun to study and went down rabbit holes with Cliff Kingsbury and the air raid and concepts of the run that he's using. They look fantastic on tape as far as offense goes there. And then I thought, well, I'm probably going to end up picking the Commanders here. Then I turned on the defensive side of tape and did a little work there. And I thought, man, the Steelers should be able to run, should be able to move the football on them. Can they get a takeaway or two in this game? And then after all that, I said, you know what? I still think at my gut Washington's going to win. And then I said, man, I'm not going to doubt Mike Tomlin having this team ready. I just think that he's going to have this defense ready enough. I think the offense can turn a corner a little bit in the red zone. I'm going to trust Mike Tomlin. This is a trust Mike Tomlin gets it done game for me. I'm going to say 27-26. Steelers win by 1 point. The Commanders might see something even at the end where the Commanders score, what's all been all the talk, score late, try to go for 2. And even though they're at home, I don't think they want to get a situation where they would want to go in overtime. So I have this as a 1 point game. Steelers win. I'm going to trust that Mike Tomlin has his team doing just enough to get a 1 point road win.
So this could come down to like a Baltimore-esque. They're going for 2 on the last play.
Right.
A lot of the Bengals. No Hail Mary, though. I'm nervous to see a Jayden Daniels Hail Mary. Seen that story. Have they named that play yet? Have they named the Jayden Daniels Hail Mary against the Bears? Have they? Usually they call those things something.
I thought I saw a couple of cute. I can't remember them, but I think I've seen a couple of people tweet some cute things for it.
I think it's called the Tyreek Stevenson will never live that play down play. I think it's the first time all year we've picked opposite ends. I think it's the first time you've taken Pittsburgh and I've taken the opposition. So we'll see who comes out on top on this one.
Absolutely.
All right, Dave, any other things to talk about? If not, we can get to some reader emails and close out today's show.
Yeah, we better start winding this one down. Let's see. Bryce writes in, bye week is over, 5-star matchup. Broderick Jones is officially the Ike Taylor of offensive tackles while he has time to turn it around. His second season is very reminiscent of Ike's 2004 season after the promising rookie season. Oy vey writes, number 2, with the additional deep ball contested threat of Mike Williams, do you think the Steelers need to lean into more dagger concepts in the passing game to create more over the middle chunk plays? He says, my thought is that with Williams and Pickens keeping defenses honest with the outside deep ball, this would then open the middle up for them to make catches of more of those deep dagger concepts. Look, I mean, if we see Washington play more kind of cover 2 type situations in some of that second level stuff, you could see some of that in breaking dagger type stuff, right?
Yeah, you could. I mean, it's not their bread and butter to throw over the middle a ton, and their offense under Wilson's still about throwing more outside the numbers. But yeah, it's a lot of that is defensive dependent. I don't have the data on it. I could be wrong, but I do feel like they faced a lot of cover 1 single high teams this year, and so trying to throw over the middle and down the seams bit is just harder to do and less advisable. I think it's partly because teams are stacking the box and playing 8 in the box, and that naturally creates those single high looks there. So yeah, we'll keep watching it, but I'm all for those concepts over the middle that stresses defenses, horizontally and vertically.
And look, we need to see 3 or 4 moon balls in this game, regardless of where they go. We need to see Pickens and maybe back shoulder. Mike Williams is so good along the sideline still with contested balls and all like that. So I wouldn't be surprised if Russ gives him a couple of shots at those in this game. And obviously, dagger's an easy concept to pick out, and if they run it and connect on it, it'll probably be in our Twitter feed.
Over under 2.5 catches for Mike Williams in his Steelers debut.
I'll go over. I think they want to get him involved early in this to try to see how Washington reacts here.
Okay. I'll say he gets 2 in this game, so I'll take the under.
Beth Weaver writes in, Russell might be exactly what Tomlin needs as far as team leadership. Part of the critique of Tomlin I've had is he gets too up when the team is good. If you remember, he sort of looked past the Jaguars to a rematch with the Patriots only to get beat by the Jaguars. It happens in season, in my opinion, and they come out a little flat. Lose to who they should beat. He says, Beth says, Russell keeps mentioning they haven't done anything yet. A lot of work to do. I hope he keeps saying that if they keep winning. Beth, look, we've said this right from the get-go. Everything Russell Wilson has said and done on the field, off the field, whatever, is exactly what you want from a veteran quarterback coming to a new team. So I think he has handled this very well. You're only as good as the next game. And Mike Tomlin even said this past week, you're only as good as what your record says you are, right? Here. So this is a big test. This is not a give me the Steelers should. Look, they're not favored in this game for a reason. This is not setting up if they lose to be in one of those quote unquote Tomlin specials. They're going to have to earn this.
Best team Pittsburgh has faced all year. Is that fair to say?
I think from especially what they're going to face offensively, I think it is.
I think so too. Now, may say that about Baltimore the following week, although their defense has struggled more. But I think this will be the best team, at least in terms of their current form. Like Atlanta is better than what Pittsburgh saw them in week 1. The Chargers might be better with a healthier Herbert. But in terms of like where they're at right now, the team that they're walking inside that stadium against, it's the best version of that current team they're facing in terms of the opposition. And I think Washington is the best they've seen.
Thanks for the email, Beth. One more from Michael Rocket. Dear men of the Terrible Podcast, great article on Mike Williams' receiving data. That was from our own Clayton Eckert. Very interesting. One thing I was curious about is his willingness and ability to block in the run game, given how important it is for success of the offense led by Arthur Smith. Anything you have seen on tape or in data that you can highlight about his blocking?
I saw on tape, I saw a willingness. He's got size, obviously. I saw on a crack toss when they played the Steelers. He cracked Highsmith on a toss to the outside. I can try to look up for anyone who cares about PFF grades, just to try to put some metric on it. He was asking for some data on that. But yeah, I think Williams is a willing and capable blocker with obviously the size helping him.
Yeah, you want to get him on some of them defensive backs if you can, right? I expect we'll be talking a little bit. I mean, I'll definitely be watching his blocking in this game, however much he plays. It looks like he's not got a great grade through the first part of this season, 36.4. But for his career, it's been kind of middling overall. Someone for his size, you would think that, he's willing. I haven't been floored by any little bit that I've looked about on the tape. But when it comes to that, wonder what's got his score dinged so bad this year. He's got a 36.4 PFF grade.
I mean, it's actually one of the worst run blocking grades. It looks like, I don't know, 274 out of 282. But I don't know. I saw some decent tape from him. I mean, it's not going to be tremendous. Don't expect him to be Heinz Ward, but it's certainly workable.
Yeah, we'll look at it for sure for the snaps that he gets in this game against Washington here. Let's see if I can get to one more. Now, I think we got all of them. This one was on the snap counts that we hit the other day here. Okay, Alex, any final thoughts on this one? Exciting, should be an exciting game overall. Any closing thoughts?
Yeah, should be a really fun game. I'm looking forward to it. Good litmus test. And I mean, again, I don't like to make predictions about what teams will look like in the future, but not a lot of quote unquote easy, or I should say easier games. You got Washington, and then on the other side is that AFC North gauntlet, 4 straight divisional games. And yeah, really going to learn a lot about the Steelers team the next 5 weeks.
Yeah, look, if you could get a resounding win in this one, this would speak volumes, because once again, this is a good Washington offense. So it should be fun. We'll be back to talk about it on Monday during the show. In the meantime, you can follow me on Twitter /X at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast at Gmail or on Twitter /X at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and want to donate, SteelersDepot.com. Hit the donate button. Also, if you like an ad-free version, SteelersDepot.com. Hit the ad-free button. Follow the directions that way. We got the scouting reports for offense and defense up on the site via Alex and Josh and Jonathan Hightritter. A lot of great work and clips went into that. So stop by and read those. We'll have a lot of great content the rest of the weekend. Obviously, any news, press conference recaps, Saturday transactions, 5 keys, all the standard stuff. So please stop by SteelersDepot.com and say hello to us. So until Monday, as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.